Today is 7th of January 2025. Yesterday I talked about a gatha, a verse, in which Buddha mentioned about the extraordinary happiness and mentioned the three conditions, three features needed in order to enjoy the extraordinary happiness. Those three features are entering into solitude place, tranquilling the mind, and comprehending the Dhamma in right way. These are the three conditions or the features needed in order to enjoy the extraordinary happiness. I also talk about the ordinary happiness or sensuous happiness, and I compare between ordinary happiness and the extraordinary happiness. Or in another way, I said the happiness that enjoys by ordinary people and the happiness that enjoyed by the extraordinary people. And meanwhile, I explain about the solitude place. Right now we are already in the solitude place. That means the first condition, the first feature is already with us, or we have already entered into the solitude place. But entering alone into solitude place is not sufficient in order to enjoy the extraordinary happiness. You enter the solitude place, then after you sleep there, or if you keep roaming around, that is not how we can enjoy the genuine happiness or extraordinary happiness.
Và khi mà chúng ta tới đây là chúng ta tới một cái nơi thích hợp, một cái nơi vắng vẻ. Mà nếu mà chúng ta ngủ hoặc là chúng ta chỉ làm việc này việc kia, đi đây đi đó, thì nó không thể nào mà chúng ta có được cái hạnh phúc vượt thế gian được.
You practice meditation, however, if you don't practice diligently, systematically, still can't enjoy the genuine happiness. That is why Buddha mentioned second and the third condition to enjoy extraordinary happiness. Among those two, second one is tranquility is needed. Tranquilling the mind is the second condition to enjoy the genuine happiness. Now the question arises, how do we calm down our mind, or how do we tranquil our mind? To calm down or to tranquil the mind, concentration is needed. Concentration can tranquil the mind, or concentration calms down our mind. Again, another question arises, how to develop concentration. Concentration can be developed by practicing meditation. And there are two types of meditation. First is samatha meditation, concentration meditation. And the second is vipassana meditation, insight meditation. Again, when we practice samatha meditation, we can develop concentration. But by practicing samatha meditation, we can't develop knowledge. And development of the knowledge is the third condition Buddha mentioned in that gatha, in that verse. So here Buddha is not talking about the concentration generated by the samatha practice. That's why here Buddha mentioned about the concentration developed by the vipassana meditation. For your general knowledge, I would like to say that samatha meditation has different objects to observe, and vipassana meditation has different objects to observe. Concept, panyati in Pali. Concept is the object of samatha meditation, and physicality, mentality, rupa and nama are the objects of vipassana meditation. That's why you have to understand these two meditations have completely different objects, different phenomena. I repeat, samatha meditation has object of concept, panyati, and vipassana meditation has the object of reality, ultimate reality, that is physicality and mentality. Now again, how to develop concentration? How we can develop concentration? Question arises. To develop concentration, we need mindfulness. Mindfulness, sati is needed in order to develop concentration. That is why we are practicing here satipatthana meditation, the meditation of mindfulness, in order to develop mindfulness. It is also known as vipassana meditation that I have just mentioned, insight meditation. Now the final question is how to develop mindfulness. To develop mindfulness, we have to observe the presently arising object. So again, how to observe the presently arising object. So today we will talk about how to observe the presently arising object in order to develop mindfulness. Before talking about how to develop mindfulness, I would like to remind yogis that the object or phenomena of vipassana meditation is presently arising object. Objects which are arising at present moment. Presently arising objects means not those objects which have already arisen in the past, and not those objects which are yet to arise in future. For example, we observe rising, falling. We don't observe those rising, fallings which have already arisen, and already gone. Again, we don't observe those rising and fallings which are yet to arise. We observe rising and falling which are happening, which are arising at present moment. Again, when thinking, thoughts, mental phenomena arise, at that time also we observe those thinking and thoughts or mentalities which are arising at the present moment. We don't observe those mentalities or mental phenomena which have already arisen and passed away. Again, we don't observe those mentalities which are yet to arise. Again, when we observe sensation, various types of sensation, we observe those sensations which are arising at present moment, not those sensations which have already arisen and pass away, and those which are yet to arise. So do in walking meditation, when we observe movements of the legs, we observe that leg or that movements of the leg which is taking place at present moment, not the step which we have already made or which is already finished or which we are yet to make. So we note like right step, left step, which is taking place as at present moment. When we do lifting, dropping, we observe lifting, we observe dropping, which is happening at present moment. Similarly, we observe lifting, moving and dropping, which is happening at present moment. In daily activities also we observe that action which we are performing at present moment. If we are standing up, we observe that present action. If we are sitting down, then we observe that present action. If we are eating, then eating. If we are drinking, drinking, and so on. That's why yogis have to understand that the objects to observe is presently arising objects, not the past, not the future. So presently arising object, and that presently arising object is either physicality or mentality. In Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha mentioned the 4 objects: Kaya as physical object, then Vedana as feelings, then Chitta as mind and the mentalities, the Chitta as mind or consciousness, and Dhamma as general objects. But if we summarize those 4 objects, they become only 2, and they are physicality and mentality. So generally we can say there are only 2 objects to observe: physicality, rupa, and mentality, nama. Again, yogis, meditators have to understand that we have to observe physicality and mentality. Unlike to samatha meditation, because samatha meditation has the object of concept, which is completely different. Now I have to answer the question of how to observe those presently arising objects. To observe those presently arising objects, we need two crucial factors. Without these two main crucial factors, we can't observe the presently arising objects, so we can't develop mindfulness. Among those two, the first one is aiming factor, aiming mentality. That means we have to aim to presently arising object. For example, during the sitting, rising and falling is our objects to observe as a main objects. So to observe those rising and falling, we have to aim our mind towards the abdomen. So aiming is needed, aiming factor is needed. Rising and falling is taking place at abdomen, not taking place at nose, not taking place at other parts of the body. So if we aim our mind at nose, we will not see rising and falling. So that is not the right place to aim our mind. Where do we need to aim is we need to aim to abdomen, to belly. Then only we see the expansion, contraction, or rising and falling of abdomen. While walking, in order to observe the movements of the legs, we have to aim our mind towards the leg, especially lower part of the legs. I think I have mentioned on the very first day, when you observe the movements of the legs, you don't need to observe the entire leg, you just need to observe the lower part, which is mostly functioning. So we have to aim the legs in order to observe the movements. At that time, we can't aim our mind other parts of the body, like we can't aim abdomen, we can't aim on head, because there do not exist the movements of the legs. So we have to aim towards the leg. So only we can see the movements. When pain is on right knee, you can't aim to left knee. You will not see that pain of the right knee if you aim to left knee. So aiming is needed. Similarly, in daily activities, while moving right hand, if you aim to left hand, you will not see the movements of the right hand. To observe movements of the right hand, you have to aim, you have to target your mind to right hand. Aiming factor will lead your mind directly or straightforward to the meditative object. That's why the first factor needed is aiming factor. Second factor is energy. Mental energy is needed. That energy which propels our mind towards the meditative object, which pushes our mind towards the meditative object, so that mind can approach to the meditative object. And that energy must be sufficient energy, energetic energy, because if energy is not sufficient, your mind will not approach, mind will not get the object. Here is an example to understand about aiming factor and the energy. You might have seen the dart game. In dart game there is a dart board, then there are small missiles to be thrown. So the missiles are to hit the center of the dartboard. We release missiles to hit the center of the dartboard. To hit the center of the dartboard, we have to aim. Without aiming, we can't hit the center of the dartboard. Again, aiming alone is not sufficient. By just aiming, missile on our hand is not going to reach to the center of the dartboard. What we need energy. We have to throw, we have to release by applying energy. Then only that missile will hit the center of the dartboard. Again, applying energy alone is not sufficient. We just apply energy, we just throw the missile. That will not be sufficient to hit the center of the dartboard. We need aiming. We have to aim, then only we can hit the center of the dartboard. So in this way, both factors, aiming factor and energy factor, these factors are crucial to hit the center of the dartboard. And again, energy must be sufficient energy. Sufficient energy is needed because your energy is not enough, not sufficient, the missile is not going to reach the dartboard. It will fall shortly. It will fall shortly. So that's why, again, not just energy, but sufficient energy is needed. Let's take another familiar example, because all may not be familiar with the dartboard. So let's take familiar example, that is playing marble. When we play marble, to hit another marble, we have to aim. And we have to apply sufficient energy. Then only we can hit another marble. Aiming alone is not sufficient. Applying energy alone also not sufficient. Both are needed. Both are crucial. And energy, again, sufficient energy only can hit another marble. Similarly, to observe presently arising object, we have to aim and we have to apply sufficient energy. If you don't aim and apply sufficient energy, you will not see the object. You will not see object, or you will not see object clearly. Means when we try to observe rising and falling, If aiming is not there, right, accurate aiming is not there, sufficient energy is not there, you may not see, you may not feel, or you may not notice the rising and falling. By any chance, if you do, if they are not sufficient, they are not accurate, then will not see clearly. That's why those yogis who don't see the objects clearly, even rising and falling, don't see clearly, make sure that your aiming is accurate to the abdomen and your energy is sufficient. Not only when we observe rising and falling, if thinking, thoughts, planning, have to aim accurately, have to apply sufficient energy. If we observe unpleasant sensation, again have to aim and apply sufficient energy. If we observe movements of the leg, aiming and sufficient energy. If we observe daily activities, again aiming and sufficient energy. Simply whatever presently arising object we observe, we have to aim accurately and we have to apply sufficient energy. But at the beginning of the practice, we still might miss the presently arising object since our aiming is not accurate. Our energy is not strong enough. When we play dart, at the beginning, despite of trying to hit at the center of the dartboard, we still might miss. When we play marble at the beginning, still we might miss because skill is yet to develop. We need practice. We need to train our mind to aim accurately, to apply sufficient energy. As we practice again and again, as we train our mind again and again, we become capable to aim accurately. We come to know how much energy is needed in order to observe the presently arising object. That is why yogis have to do repeatedly. For example, when you observe rising and falling, you should try to observe repeatedly by aiming, by applying sufficient energy. If you try your best again and again, then you become skillful to observe the rising and falling. Again, at the beginning of the practice, our energy is not strong, so mind remains far from the object. That is also why it is not clear enough. But as we apply energy again and again, over and over, mind gets closer to the object. And when mind gets closer to the object, again objects become predominant. Objects become obvious, clear. Just getting closer, later mind will penetrate into the object. Mind will sink. Mind will dive into the object. And by application of these two crucial factors, you will develop mindfulness. It is yet to talk about how to develop mindfulness, but you have to understand right now is without these two mental factors, it is not possible to develop mindfulness. So aim accurately and apply sufficient energy. One more thing I would like to remind here, When we observe rising and falling, we just observe the abdomen. I believe some yogis still observe rising and falling from nostril to abdomen, abdomen to nostril. We don't observe nostril. We don't aim to nostril. We just aim to abdomen, because we tend to observe the expansion and the contraction of the abdomen only. We don't care about the breathe in, breathe out. That's why we don't observe nostril. Try not to follow from nostril to abdomen, then abdomen to nostril. Like when we blow in the air into balloon, balloon expands. When we squeeze out the air, balloon contracts. So we observe only the expansion or rising and contraction, the falling of the abdomen, like expansion and the contraction of the balloon. Not only when we observe rising and falling, when we observe the unpleasant sensation, we have to aim, we have to apply energy. When we do walking meditation, we have to aim and we have to apply sufficient energy. When we observe in daily activities, we have to aim and we have to apply sufficient energy. By application of accurate aiming and sufficient energy, when you observe, it is not just observing. It is also about labeling. You have to label. Some yogis, they think it is not necessary to label. Labeling means naming by mind. Like when rising take place, we say mentally rising. When falling take place, we say falling. Some yogis, they think it is not necessary to say, not necessary to label. We have to label. Not only rising, falling, when thinking, thoughts, or mental phenomena arise, we have to know thinking as thinking. We have to label thinking as thinking, planning as planning. When sensations arise, we have to label pain as pain, aching as aching. When we do walking meditation, we have to label right step as right, left as left, lifting as lifting, dropping as dropping, lifting, moving, dropping. And when we do daily activities, we have to label. So that's why for today, may you be able to apply the accurate aiming and sufficient energy. By application of accurate aiming and sufficient energy, may you be able to observe each and every presently arising object, and by observing each and every presently arising object, may you be able to develop mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.